Hello and thank you again for joining us here at Autistic Radio, sponsored by coldpack.co.uk. When you need cryotherapy for your physiotherapy, chiropractic or osteopathic practice, Coldpack produces a gel pack which has your details printed directly on the pack and advertises your services. Thank you to Coldpack for sponsoring the 555 show and making sure we keep being here every Sunday. Hi Harry, how are we starting the show today?
Hello everyone, this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 28th of June 2026, and this is where we share the posts from the Autistic Radio Facebook page. And as always, we start with a poem that's shared. And it's shared by Neurospicy Poems, who's a writer mapping my neurodivergent inner world, AUDHD, BDA, emotional processing, giving inner voices language and relief. And what they've shared is a poem called Bystander. Like a bystander in my own reality, life often overwhelms me, but like an itch I cannot scratch, the tears won't come. They just pass me by, and I giggle instead. What's people's thoughts?
Gosh, I thought it was going to get heavy, but they seem to have let it go like a feather or something.
A giggle can be nervy.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ray. I think there's something else to this giggle. I think they're saying that they've had to suppress. They have tears, but they won't come out, and there's an overwhelming feeling that life has overwhelmed them. There's an overwhelming feeling. They feel outside the group, outside reality. They feel in a surreal situation, and it comes out as a giggle, and everyone's going to think that giggle's okay, and that the person's okay, but they're clearly saying in the poem that they're not. I think we'll put this down and say, or I will put this down and say that there's something about masking here, something about real negative version of masking.
Back before my diagnosis, when I was under the local mental health unit and they asked me about life, and I said I felt like an actor in my own life, like I was playing a role. And I don't know if that was me or not, but that's how it felt, that life felt like it was a performance, something that I did.
I'm curious about that because is it performance for yourself or for others, for the world that you're in? Because a bystander is often observing a world out there, maybe not even participating. But I think when we perform, we participate.
I feel like maybe for this person, masking might have made them a bystander. It says a bystander in my own life, my own reality. So maybe what's going on is maybe the message is, if you mask so much, are you later able to feel your own feelings correctly?
I think from what you just said, Ray, maybe being a performer is to interact with things but to be a bystander is to observe things. And I've done that as well. I mean, I used to go to pubs on my own and sit in a corner and watch people watching.
Yeah, I've been there. And when I seen this poem, it just reminded me of when I was a child. As an adult as well, but as a child, it reminded me of it reminded me when I went to groups. Like, I used to go to the Scouts, and there was times where things were kind of organised and it was an activity you did, and you just got on with it, do it well or not so well, but it was something, to get on with. But there was other times where it was just social, which a lot of it is about, of course. And I can remember I think it was one of the last times I actually went. I think I went up to the level of Venture Scout because it was at that age. And I remember just walking in, and I just stood there and just observed. And I just felt that was nothing I could give to the conversation or even to the whole room. It was a church hall, basically. So that makes it more intimidating because it was the space and the echo. But it just seemed that I was observing life going past. Like the same feeling I have when I'm waiting for someone on a busy street, like I've done a few times when I went to Glasgow, to meet a friend, to meet family. And generally where I stand is a railway station, and a central railway station, either Glasgow Queen Street or Glasgow Central itself, and it's hustle and bustle, and you're just seeing life just going by, and and don't get me wrong, in those instances it's not too uncomfortable, it's actually fascinating, because you're just seeing people just getting on with things. But I remember as a child though, that feeling of being a bystander and even giving out something like a giggle or making a noise of some kind of trying to be funny. Because I do remember that I used to use humour. Well, I don't used to, still do, but I remember I used humour to try and kind of break the ice, but it didn't always work. Sometimes people thought, oh, it was funny, that was great. Sometimes people think you're a complete idiot. Because when you're younger anyway, in childhood, I do remember that other children can be very judgmental. And it doesn't have to be anything completely different. It just needs to be something like what you're wearing that day or how your hair is or whatever. So that's that sort of thing that reminds me, this poem does.
That was really, really insightful, and I totally am reframed about this poem based on that interpretation of yours. For two reasons. One, I also was in guides, and I could only be in it because I have my sister who's almost my age, because I enjoyed it so much, but not the part that she needed to do, which was the social part. But I really wanted to do all of the hiking and cycling and making the little Bunsen burners and going on adventures. But I needed to do it silently so I could with her. But then there's this whole other thing that you just made me realize. I live in a really busy city because I find it less intimate, and maybe I like being a bystander because I'm never lonely, but I'm not like in a small town where everybody knows me, and I would have to have a meaningful conversation with people if I go outside. Somehow what you said made me think that you're a very good interpreter of poems, Harry.
For me, I think I have to recognize that when I was young, when I was trying to learn how to make friends and be part of society, there were times that being the bystander felt as though I had been pushed into that position. And there's pain in that when you're a kid. But my reaction and my resolution, I think, right the way through my teenage years and all the way now, was to make it a positive, that I really enjoy that aspect of my experience of life, my character, my how I am. Whenever I come across a new situation where there's a social or a group or something, I take up that position as the bystander, even if I interact within it. It always makes me feel as though that's a lovely, comfortable place to be. Somebody who feels slightly removed from everything. I find that a positive part of my autism.
There's good reflections here, but as a poem, I'm looking at this and going, it's almost within the nature of a poem to say much more than was intended, because it's very simple, this poem. It's a lovely word to have as a title. And of course, it's preceded by, does anyone else feel like a bystander in their own life sometimes? So a conversation, sort of, but like a bystander in my own reality, not the world's, my own. Life often overwhelms me. So overwhelm, and I'm saying that that's the tears that won't come. Is it, in a sense, an expected response to that overwhelm? Like the itch you cannot scratch, these tears won't come. So is the writer expecting tears as the result of this overwhelm? And then to conclude, they just pass me by. Who or what passes you by? The tears? Or something else, like what is being observed by the bystander, which isn't quite mentioned. So I'm just seeing this poem beginning as you deconstruct the layers, stuff is slipping out.
It's a very good poem that way. And when Jules was speaking, I realized that we let people be bystanders here. That's how I was first. I listened to every episode, and then I came in the part where you don't have to speak. And then here I am in this part, but you could, if you wanted, be a bystander here with us.
Yes, that's true. More I think about the poem, and this is only my interpretation, but that's what poetry is all about if you're sharing it, is it's like it was a poem that was going to go one direction, but it was like a mind change at the last minute or an emotional change. Because I know that can happen. And a lot of the times when that happens, especially when I've been doing poetry, the poem is actually discarded. It's like, no, that's too deep, it's too strong, it's too negative. But there's a talent or a skill here where it's been changed maybe halfway through the thought process and turned into something new. I may be completely wrong about this, but that's how it reads, following what we've been talking about, since the poem's been read.
I'd like to look at it with another framing. And I'd like to look at it as though the poet is saying, I can be misunderstood because when I am giggling, all this other stuff is happening. And I am giggling when rashly I think I probably should have tears. And the tears don't come to me. It's like an itch I cannot scratch. I can't reach those tears. Those are the things that would represent my overwhelm with life that's happening, whatever incident or thing or thought that's been. Tears should be the thing that I feel that, or I know that would come from this, but I'm going to be ending up giggling, and that's going to misrepresent me to the rest of the world, and I'm going to be misunderstood by it. So that's another way. It's a way of thinking, when we behave in a way that's inappropriate in society's eyes for our inner life, and therefore we're not reaching with a true communication.
The next post is from Matt Gutwell, who is a distinguished keynote speaker renowned for his expertise in neurodiversity. Drawing from over 15 years of research and hands-on experience, Matt combines his personal journey with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, addiction, and anxiety disorders to deliver engaging, informative presentations. And he shared the following. I get it. I'm the guy who talks about all things ADHD and autism a lot. I talk about neurodivergent experiences a lot. Do I say things the way 99.9% of content does? No. But I must be doing something right, because when the Ministry of Defence and the Defence Academy of the UK, NHS trusts, are my clients, choosing me to help them support neurodivergent staff, trainees, and clients, that tells me something. When the Royal College of Psychiatrists asked me to talk to one of their neurodivergent When the Royal College of Psychiatrists asked me to talk to one of their neurodevelopmental psychiatry special interest groups about how to support people after diagnosis, that tells me something. That they approached me. I know who I am and want to work with me because of what I say and how I say it. It's important. I know Bookface or Insta isn't the place for this kind of share, but you know what? I'm chuffing proud of what I am achieving. So to everyone that used to take the piss because I banged on about autism and ADHD, thank you. Seems like the right people were listening now, eh? What's your thoughts?
This is great because it's when people are saying that the world isn't for us and struggling to move forwards, if some of us can, to engage with the people who are making the rules and compromising on the way we want things to be, and they compromise as well, it only moves things forwards.
There's a little bit of concern to me that the Ministry of Defence is constantly finding different ways of attracting the neurodivergent for their new version of warfare based on drones. They think, in a rather simple way in some circumstances, that a lot of nerds who are used to using war games will be very useful to them in modern warfare. And it feels to me a little bit exploitative. It feels to me a little bit dangerous. So for those of us that do get these opportunities to join big governmental organisations, please remember to think about the wider picture and make up your own mind about that as well.
I found this post fascinating because I wasn't sure what to take from it at first. what was it actually saying? Was it someone who is autistic themselves, ADHD themselves, who have basically been told to shut up, they talk too much? They had a lot to share and a lot to give, and people are basically saying to them, look, you're too much, be quiet, talk about something else. And then turning it on its head and saying, well, look, these people listen to me, I'm helping people out, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. People take it that both ways. But the way I've looked at it, now thinking on it, is it's like you're giving. It's like you're feeling self-worth. And that's a very important thing. Now, in the past, my expertise of autism, my own autism and no one else's, I've been in positions where people from the likes of the NHS or the Western Berkshire Council have asked me to talk about experience, and obviously it's done for nothing this way. Not that I want paid, but it's like some people kind of look upon that as being used. Because I do recall being in certain meetings and certain groups are saying, look, they're just using us just as a tick box exercise. It's a waste of time. But I try not look at it that way. It's like it's a way in. And if I didn't feel comfortable with it, I wouldn't do it. What I've read about Matt Gutwell as well is one of his children was diagnosed with autism first. And then he was diagnosed, or he identified himself a little later, which I like that journey because I've got a friend, as I've spoken before, who's went through that journey as well. And his ex-partners actually did it the same in terms of ADHD because her son was diagnosed with that first. So it's inspirational and a bit boastful in a way and defiant. And at this moment in time, I'm quite liking it.
Yeah, I'd have to go read it. I think I'd have to go read everything else the person wrote. Because I also agree that with Jules that I don't like the recruiting of autistic people for the purposes of this kind of drone war. I would hope this fellow is not encouraging it.
Now, I think we can say that Matt Gutwell, he comes across as a good person. He's been out there a long time trying to make a noise, and it's been really important as his advocacy work. I'm not saying that he's training people nefariously. I'm going on a tangent and saying about how the military particularly are interested in autistic people at the moment. A friend of mine's son has been recruited by the military to work in cybersecurity. They call it cybersecurity. It starts off as you're going to protect your nation from other people using tactics against us, and it ends up very quickly into cyber warfare. How can you shut down somebody else's water supply to disable the population? So it's very difficult when you're dealing with the military. You have to really have your eyes open, and it seems to me of a lot of the autistic people I know, the military is very often attractive. I have another friend with an autistic son who was very keen on the military, and another acquaintance whose son's in the Navy. So it's all a bit, they do yet tend to use us as cannon fodder.
And they've also used us in the past too. let's think about the code breakers, which is good and safe, but also the people who very rapidly and were pushed fast to develop the nuclear bomb.
Yeah, I'm getting this conversation. Yeah, the military, the whatever they called it, defence. Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, I'm totally, in terms of that, personally, I'm kind of apprehensive of how it can, how autistic people can be used, how anybody people can be used, but autistic people especially, because the way some of our minds work in terms of commitment, desire, and basically, to a level, and I admit I do this myself, obsession. So that can be used as a weapon, and that is a frightening prospect. Yes, people say, "Oh, but no, no, no. What you're doing is you're protecting your country, but you're doing this and doing that." You can dress up in so many different ways, and in some ways, I suppose it's not all negative, but I do totally understand the concern on that front.
I'm concerned with exploitation and then discarding the people later. So I don't remember who it is, but there's the one who is it? The one who then was later just, they catch you up and they discard you after the whole endeavor is done. And I think I'm mixing up my historic figures, but there was the one who then was pretty much outed and everything for being homosexual, and it was just a disaster. They want you for what they want you for, and I know this is not what this writer is doing. Hopefully he's probably helping it to not happen. But my kind of autism can be used. Like, I am a person who can be used for their knowledge, and I'm not really seeing what's going on, and it's such a larger scale if it is for a war purpose.
There's been a few texts, but I'm unsure whether to share them or not. The next post is from Nicole Wyckoff, who is shared on the group Unmasking AUDHD Her, which is a resource for those who have received late in life diagnoses of autism and or ADHD, as well for the loved ones who seek to support and love us. It's time to understand the glitch between our potential and our performance. Let's share the tools we've learned which make our lives easier. And what Nicole has shared is the following. Forgive me if this has been asked previously. I'm so curious how many of you look younger. I'm so curious how many of you look much younger than your age. Do you also still feel much like a child in some ways? Almost like imposter syndrome as an adult? For reference, I am 46. I feel like my whole life, because I look younger than my peers, they have often looked down on me and have not taken me seriously a lot of times, as though I am a child. It's a compliment to hear how young I look in midlife, but it has had its drawbacks. I used to think it was good genes, but I'd love to hear if others share in this characteristic. What's people's thoughts?
Ageism.
Yeah, ageism, Ray. let's put it on a hook. There's this thing, isn't there, that we're all really individual, but we follow. And what I see, what I perceive as people get older around me, is they follow each other on how to look older. They wear a uniform of oldness. They carry themselves in an old way, and they adopt the next decade of behaviours, almost as though they are enforcing it upon themselves. Now, I get a sense of somebody's age by the way they move, the way they act, the thing they say, what they're doing, some of the lines on their face, some of the appearances on them, some of how much stress is in them. And I'm guessing that if you're autistic, you don't give all the signals out that people use to put an age on you. You may just even giggle a bit instead of sounding more reserved. It's all these subtle behaviours that people use, and if you're autistic, you're likely to be a little bit more individual, a little less crowd following, and people are going to judge you as younger for your years. But the other thing is, people are going to judge you as less able anyway because you're autistic. Well, that's because you're young looking or not. It's most likely because you're autistic, because the general feeling out there is that we're a bit incapable. And if we're not incapable, we're threatening. So what people want to view you as is a younger person so they can patronise and talk down to you, because that's what they do to younger people. You might not do it so much because you're autistic. You're probably more egalitarian. You probably get on with all kinds of age groups. But the way the general population works is very hierarchical, and 10 years, decade means that you get the opportunity to speak to people in a certain way, and you're getting the brunt of it.
I have a lot to say about this. So, in my life, I've always had a very young sounding voice. I don't know if I still do, but I think I might, because if I'm in an Uber and it's a long ride and they're looking at the road and they're just hearing me in the back, not just the sound of my voice, but the conversation that I might have with them will lead them to just be surprised. Like if there's no other indication, and then they'll say, "Where are you going now?" And I'll say, "I'm going to my son's house." And you know that he has 3 children, and then they almost want to pull the car over and look. They're like, what the heck? You just seem so much younger. And then you're right, there are people who do patronize and trip me up. But here's the thing in my life that I have found. I sometimes am sort of like a steel fist in a silk glove, or whatever you want to do, like an old soul with a young voice or something. And if you really are smart as another person, not a person who's going to take advantage of me, you know very well that if I had the last word in a circumstance where not everybody was a bully, it would probably be one of wisdom.
On Tuesday, I went to the cinema and I was buying a ticket for next week, and I said, "Can I have a silver ticket, please?" And the guy asked me my age. And I said, "I'm 63. And he said, "Are you sure?" And so I told him my date of birth, and he said, "You look the same age as me." And I thought, my God, you're 30. I don't look anything like I'm 30 years old. But I was booking a ticket for next week to see Jackass. And I don't expect many 60-year-old people are going to see that. And I think that the music I like and the films and TV I like are things that appeal to young people still. And I bought my first Rolling Stones album when I was 15, and I'm just about to buy the latest one. I'm 63. The TV I grew up with was Doctor Who, Star Trek, Star Wars. All that's still around. I wear plaid shirts like I used to when I was in the building trade 40 years ago. I wear the same clothing. I my body aches, as I've said. My back's really playing me up at the moment, but mentally, I don't feel any different to the way I did when I was 14.
I'm getting a real vibe there when you're describing the young guy thinking you're his age. It's almost like you're one of us, you know, because you're here at this event, this thing for this age group. So you must be that age group, you know. It's all very weird, isn't it? There was something else I was going to say, but it's gone.
The funny thing was, I said, what screen's it on? And he said, why? And I said, because I have a list of the seats that I have to sit in particular screens. I've got 8 screens out of 10 map now. And he said, why do you do that? And I said, because I have autism. I mean, I had my sunflower lanyard in my card. And he said, oh, yeah, I'm on the spectrum myself. You do have to have the right seat. And when I said the seat I wanted, he said, that's perfect. It's right in the middle. So he did get that.
Oh man, that's lovely. He totally, yeah, you're one of us. The other thing I was going to ask was, did you dance your way in? I've got a friend who was undiagnosed for a long time, and he used to dance around the supermarket and things. It's just, there was a certain youthful vibrancy in the way he, it wasn't an act, it was just him, the way he entered places and moved around. And sometimes we don't even know we're doing it, but it betrays a certain kind of youthful mind.
I do fidget. Sorry, Teresa.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so yeah, my daughter, when she went away to university and then she came back for the first holiday, hers was a pretty like 5 hours away. So I think she didn't come home until Christmas. And she said, "Oh, wow, I did not realize how different you are until I've been away. You are so different and so much younger." But also, I'm not. She knew that too, because I was the responsible one and I was able to raise them. But there was this thing that remained. And I also choose my seats in the theater, and I'm quite particular too.
You know, when people say you should grow up, I really wish I could grow down at times.
I find it sort of quite weird because I don't know, I can't think of anyone really who I was at school with who's still into the same music. And I was lucky enough to have a band that kept going. And I don't know, I mean, I never married, so maybe that would have taken me away from it. But I love my films and TV and music, and it keeps me going. And I think it does keep me young. And when I see, although admittedly off the stage for 2 years, when I see Mick Jagger running around for 2 hours on a stage at 81 years old, my back is never going to let me go that well when I'm 81. But I think it is a bit inspirational, and that little jot of teenage rebellion I had when I first bought their music. And now all the young people are saying, oh, the Rolling Stones are old and they shouldn't be doing that. Now they're rebelling against young people. They rebelled against the old, and now they're old, they're rebelling against the young. There's a nice symmetry to that.
I really love that has happened for you there, Teresa. Your daughter saying, when she came back after a little bit of a break away from you, saying, wow, you really are different, Mum. Because what I read into that, and what I want to read into that, and what I want to be true in that, is that over this last little while, as you're in this journey, the overused term journey, but situation, a changing situation, a metamorphosis almost into somebody who's knowing that little bit more from the inside about their own autism, and embracing that and it coming out authentically more with you, I'm sure. And she's noticed that, I reckon. I hope I'm right. And it just sounds so beautiful if I am, you know?
Oh, thanks. You know, neither one of us knew we were neurodivergent, and when that happened, because she's 37 now, we did know my son was, but I really liked it after she realized that, because now all of her friends who are different kind, like they recommend music to me. Um, it balanced us out in a nice way. Of course, I still do know things that, but she's getting so much older now that at a very young age, she started taking care of me in some ways. Like she'll go to doctor's appointments and things. And I used to think, do you think I'm 80? But I just appreciate it.
I'm just fascinated with the conversation as well as the post itself, because in my experience, I don't know how I look, but my mum has been told she looks younger, and because I've seen my mum, you know, on a regular basis for so long, you don't kind of notice the age anyway. My sister Helen's the same. So what you could say about that about Mary? Yes, in fact, all my siblings, well, maybe apart from the older one, my younger siblings anyway, it's like they're coming to a certain age. Helen's nearly 40 and she still looks a lot younger. But the point I'm making is, despite that, I've been told that I'm like an old man. Maybe not because of the way I look, but because of my behaviour. And that's been an accusation for years. Not that I'm offended by it, I find it quite fascinating, because the way I dress, the way I talk. And people do say, or someone did say to me, if I shaved my beard, I'd look a lot younger than I think anybody does. But I just find it fascinating about this, what people look upon you. And the thing I do actually more fascinating, but then it's kind of obvious in a way. If someone looks younger, there's this sort of, the way that society is that even if they don't know you're autistic, and if they do, you're kind of looked down upon anyway. But if you look younger, you look down upon even more. Because I recall, being in committees for a long time, I recall a few times when I used to say something or make a suggestion, or even talk about experience of life that I had at the time, like maybe in my 20s. There always seemed to be someone in their 50s or 60s that would used to say, you don't know what life is yet. And basically putting it down. So I'd imagine people that look younger would get that right away. And if you're autistic, doubly so.
I don't think I look younger, though. That's the thing. I think I just sound younger or something, or I just behave a little bit. And I want to say about what you just said, maybe it's not younger or older. Maybe it's timeless. Maybe the same is true for you, because you have a nice calmness and you think about things ahead. And I trust what you say. You have a nice pacing and some things like that. So maybe it's just that we're being timeless, because I certainly do not look young for my age anymore, which is why I said if the Uber driver's looking at the road and it's a long trip, they will just somehow be surprised about my age. But if they look at me, I'm sure they know. I feel it's somehow also true for you. You're timeless.
The thing is, I don't think the face is how people predominantly decide on whether they will guess your age, you're old or young. it used to be more important. Now, I would have difficulty telling people's ages, especially women that make up or use Botox or all these kind of things that make them look a bit AI. But men also, because they're using all these different products, it's no longer in any way reliable as the other things giving it away. Our demeanour, the subjects like GR was saying, the voice like you're saying, whether we're active, whether the way we walk into the room, I think, which was like Harry was saying, that our attitudes can often be unexpected, which make us look younger. There's so many other things that people perceive in us that often, and I have to say that I used to go when I travel. I was very used to the idea that from the age of 40, people were going to underestimate my age. As I was travelling, I was so used to the idea that people would say, "Oh, really? Oh, crikey! No, I didn't realise it." I just expected it, and it stopped. People have stopped being surprised when I say that I'm 61. They say something different now. They say, I don't behave like I'm 61. You don't act, you don't give the impression. They no longer say you don't look 61, because I look in the mirror, and if I've just woken up on the side of a railway track waiting for a train, I'm going to look 61, you know?
I like what GR's put on the text. The voice of Lisa Simpson, who I think is about 10, well, it's a cartoon, but still comes from a 62-year-old actress. The next post is from Safe Clydebank, who are a non-profit organisation supporting additional support needs and family empowerment in partnership with PALS, who are a local community charity based in Western Barnshire that supports additional support needs in the community. And what they've shared is dates for the diary. In Scotland, there's the start of the summer holidays from school. I know we'll all be feeling that dread and unsure what the next 7 weeks will look like. This is why we created Safe, to share, vent, or just feel part of something. We have new dates, and we'll be back in Western Barnshire for Families Hub on the 27th of August to offload and catch up on our summer holidays. We would also love to hear from you guys on what it would be like to see from Safe, as this is about you, the parents, caregivers, how we help you, and you help us make things that little bit easier. Can't wait to see you all again, and remember, we're just a message away and doing groups like Can't wait to see you all again, and remember, we are just a message away and doing groups with Pals Clydebank to help break the little ones' holidays up. Thanks, Natalie. What's your thoughts?
I just got like a big spreadsheet from my son and his wife about the summer. I have actually had it for 5 days or something, and I'm afraid to look at it.
When I look at the post itself, Safe Clydebank actually got in touch with me through one of the other community Facebook groups that I run promoting their service, and I thought it was good to share with, because it was about autism. They were basically discussing a local autism group in terms of parents with or caregivers of children who have autism, and that's why I'm sharing quite a lot actually on the Autistic Radio page. I think it's a sort of it's local. I want to give them a global kind of exposure, so to speak. But what the actual post kind of reminds me of is, even though I didn't like school, I was used to the routine of school. And I recall waking up very early, I'm talking about 6 in the morning, to prepare, particularly in high school. In fact, it was for high school, because of the day ahead I felt was always going to be quite a challenge. And I believe that a lot of autistic people will be still feeling that these days. Although I would like to believe that there's been improvements, but you can't always control how people feel, because it's a cruel world and you can't resolve everything all at once. But the routine thing is what I'm thinking about. And I used to get lost when it came to the holiday time. Not just summer holidays, but any time off. It was just like, in school, there was this rigid timetable. Not one I enjoyed, but it was something that I was used to sort of doing. So I'm just wondering how autistic children feel about when that routine breaks. Some maybe actually be relieved, but I do recall in my experience it wasn't always a pleasant one.
That's a really good point. Um, when I was a kid, I was relieved because it would mean I would go up north to stay with my grandparents in a place up north. It was just a relief to me to be away from. I didn't like, school. I liked the topics. I didn't like that social problem. However, in my son's life, and he's neurodivergent, yes, this change in the routine did cause some trouble to his kind of equilibrium or something. Do you know what I mean? He thrived on the routine the way you're talking about. And I totally resonated when you said you woke up early because you needed to be ready. I get that, how you needed to be ready for school.
The only thing about it made a long, long day. But yeah, it's just that routine thing I just had in my head. It just kind of brought it back to me. I think what possibly clinched my diagnosis at the time was when I was in an adolescent unit in Glasgow, and they used to do these meetings every week. The nurses, the staff, and all that, talking to the people. And there was a school, and there was a school timetable. And I recall that they changed something, and I wasn't happy with it. Can't remember why, but I was just so irritated. Why had they changed it? I think it's like they made the Friday was always a half day, but they made it a bit shorter because they wanted to do that sort of staff meeting on the Friday as well. And I went, but I did go nuts basically. I was that upset. So I'm just wondering if that itself kind of brought maybe that, the autism thing, obviously there's a lot more to it, but I'm just wondering if that was a clincher. I'm finding the text interesting, Ray. My routine is affected by increased noise.
Yeah, there's a lot of things changing with that as I get older. I used to have a very domestic kind of lifestyle where I used my home as a kind of studio, uh, and I did most of my stuff here. And so hot summers were a wee bit, you know, off putting at times because when the kids are released from school, if they're not being, occupied by one thing or another, they're basically out in the backyard or in the front. And on a couple of occasions, they've been interfering with cars and stuff. They get up to misbehaviour. There's a lot of identity stuff going on where they try and, become something, in these areas. There's gangs and stuff. So, yeah, but that's being very negative. And I was kind of joking a wee bit about I'll have to get a job. But I have been thinking recently about, you're quite a helpful guy, Ray. You know, you enjoy being helpful in the right situations and contexts. So maybe voluntary stuff would be worth looking at. But as soon as I start planning shit like that, it goes all wonky.
I also notice the change in the noise outside and how it affects me. There's a family several houses away, and I could tell when they were off school. They're really boisterous. And I'll get used to that, and when they go back to school, then it'll trip me up because I'll wonder where those boisterous clowns are.
Oh, they're clowns.
There's a really big high school near where I live, and it is the kind that gets lockdowns. Do you know what I mean? For like guns, it's huge, very urban. And when they have a fight, whoa, it goes wide ranging, like where hundreds of kids will chase whatever's going wrong, like just a regular fight, not a gunfight. And the police will come. It's a lot.
Is it clown school?
Two different examples.
I might not be autistic. I think I might have got it wrong. Because routines aren't my thing. And it really feels as though I'm in such a fucking minority amongst autistic. I know that if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person, all that bloody shit. But it seems like everybody else says that they love routine. And I don't think that's my thing. My thing is having autonomy and doing it my way. And my perception is that other people call that routine, whereas I don't know. There's some kind of self-delusion going on because it doesn't feel like routine to me. Whatever people, surely we're here for a very short period of time, especially us now at this age. We're wanting to explore things a little bit different, a little bit deeper. We don't have to go climbing Everest, but we're trying to do different things and break routines and see other things. And I don't think routine is what I want as an autistic man getting older.
Nothing set in stone, Moses. I've been thinking about this recently, the difference between ambiguity and what's the word? Unpredictability. They're both sort of the same thing. And so I think routine and variation are also the same thing. Some of us may have had sort of traumatic events in youth that make us a wee bit more vulnerable and sensitive. So routine is kind of an adaptation and we need it. But in my case, I think it's more sort of like I'm like you, autonomous, want to do my own thing, and I've fought hard to achieve that kind of space and lifestyle. And when it's interfered with, which could be seen as a routine being disturbed, I'm upset about that. And, fuck, you've made me adapt again, But, I'm getting a wee bit easier about it now. And so I don't think, so I think there's an ambiguity about these terms. And of course, they're being used for certain reasons and stuff, but I would never go down the road of, using them, the sense of them being truths in any way.
I I think I do like routines, and I like them especially in my own space. So I think I'm hearing noises from outside that are different, and I will get used to them. I just have to know what they are. I'm also capable of traveling and things, and I really can adapt very quickly, even if I'm on one of those trips where every few days it's a new place. But like I'm just thinking back to going, like I traveled all around Turkey once, and the thing that kept my routine every morning was I always would hear the call to prayer a number of times a day. And then I always would hear roosters in the morning, even in cities somehow. And it kind of just anchors me. And in a hotel, I will put out a few things like my coffee a certain way or something. I do have anchors. When my sister comes to visit, she knows that if she moves something, it will really upset me. Um, so yeah, I think I am one of the people who have that, but I guess we don't all have it.
Thanks, everyone. That was a great discussion, as always. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. So, this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 28th of June, 2026, which is part of the Spectrum Voices conversation, which is here every Sunday from 5:55 to 7 p.m. UK time, live on Facebook and other platforms. So look forward to next week, and thank you again. Good night.